Here we go again.
Oh, no, not again.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Dom, how long have we been doing this?
Once more unto the breach, dear friends.
Again and again and again until we're both dead.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews and connections to mind. Wonder Woman 1984 has finally dropped in theaters as well as HBO Max this weekend, and once again stars Gal Gadot as Diana Prince / Wonder Woman, and also stars Chris Pine, Kristen Wiig, and Pedro Pascal, and is directed by Patty Jenkins. And this film, it takes place approximately 70 years after the events of the first Wonder Woman film, but before the events of Batman v Superman and Justice League. As the name implies, it takes place in the year 1984, and Diana Prince is working at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., while also fighting crime where she can, while also maintaining her secret identity as Wonder Woman, and through a series of events, and she discovered a chance encounter with an object at the museum. It seems that Diana's long-lost love, that she thought lost forever, has come back from the dead. Steve Trevor, Chris Pine, has come back to her. How does this happen? How is this possible? We don't. It's up to Diana Prince to find out, and also to figure out the cause of some rather strange things that have been happening in the world surrounding Max Lord, played by Pedro Pascal, and also deal with a newfound friendship with Barbara, played by Kristen Wiig. Now, this will be a spoiler-free review at first, but I will be giving some spoiler thoughts later on in this video, so just be warned about that going into this. But for now, let's give some spoiler-free thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984. Is it worth your time? Is it worth seeing on HBO Max? Is it worth seeing in theaters if that's safe to do, or if the theaters are open near you? I would say absolutely. As with many of the DC Extended Universe movies that have come out, I wouldn't say none of them are worth seeing at least once. Even the ones that are definitely problematic, such as Batman v Superman or Suicide Squad. This one definitely falls in the top half for me, but maybe only just. This is a film that has been obviously delayed several times. It was meant to come out, I believe, at the end of 2019. It was delayed to August of this year. Then it was further delayed to October, and now finally Christmas Day. So there's been a lot of anticipation for this film, and I think it largely lives up for this film. It had a pretty awesome trailer going into this, so I had some high expectations going into this, and Wonder Woman has proven herself to be one of the breakout stars of the DC Extended Universe, which is somewhat surprising considering the two biggies that have been the champions for so long, namely Batman and Superman, have sort of fallen by the wayside these days, and now it's Shazam and Aquaman and Wonder Woman. I really liked the first one, and I really like the second one as well. However, I feel like the problems in the second one are more pronounced than in the first film, and I would say they do some things correct and they do some things incorrect with some problematic areas. What I mean by that is, this isn't a spoiler, but the fact that this movie takes place in the 1980s, on the one hand, what they do is the first, I'd say 2 or 3 minutes of the movie is basically just concentrated 80s. Just set the stage right now. We're in the 80s. You know, here's Duran Duran or whatever. Here's those neon exercise outfits. Here's an 80s mall. Here's an 80s arcade, and just boom, 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 all these things, and you would think that'd be all right, slow roll here. Just, we know we're in the 80s, we get it. But, I mean, so on the one hand, that would be kind of, alright, we're getting thrown into the 80s headlong here, which would seem kind of cheesy, but on the other hand, after that 2 minutes, they don't really emphasize that it's the 80s really that much the rest of the movie. And I think that worked out great. I think films such as other films set in the 80s, even things like Stranger Things, they kind of have a tendency to poke at poke into an 80s reference more often as the movie goes on. And while I am a fan of the 80s time frame, I know a lot of people are kind of over the 80s nostalgia trip that we've been on the last few years, and but I feel like they handled that relatively well in this movie. I thought the characters in this film worked quite well. I mean, our main four characters, Wonder Woman, Steve Trevor, Barbara, I forgot her last name, starts with an M, and Max Lord. They're all interesting characters, and I think they all bring important things to this movie. And while I do think things tend to get sort of simplified near the very end in the third act, and I feel like that was also sort of a problem with the first Wonder Woman. I thought that they actually pulled it off okay. It never once where in this film did my suspension of disbelief get knocked off to the point where I was off board this movie. There were some things in this movie that did knock my suspension of disbelief, being that something happens, it doesn't necessarily make sense, but who cares, we're along for the ride. And in the moment, while you're watching it, you don't necessarily care about the things that don't really make sense if you're having a good time. For some people, I feel like there are things that, if you think about them too hard, just like any movie really, but I feel like in this movie in particular, if you think about certain things too hard, that may affect your enjoyment of the movie. But overall, I would say I was along for the ride. I thought it was a great time, and really until the very last bit of the movie, maybe about the last 15 minutes-ish of the movie, I thought it was great. And the action was pretty good. I love the fact that there's a scene. It's shown in the trailer where Diana's battling a bunch of soldiers in like an armored convoy, and Diana's theme comes on, or not like the theme that she's been using. That's been her music cue, starting in Batman v Superman, then in the first Wonder Woman, and now here. I mean, that's just awesome music, and I love it when it comes up, and they worked it out well here. So the music I thought was pretty good. They didn't go overboard with 80s music, or songs throughout this movie. I think they played it fairly low key compared to a lot of other movies that have used that before. So I think they did a good job there. I'll get into some, in the spoiler parts, I'll give it some specifics into the things that I think may not have worked out as well as I thought. But overall, I would say the flaws of this film are definitely present. I wouldn't say it's necessarily better than the first Wonder Woman, even though the first Wonder Woman definitely did have problems. This still had problems, but it had different problems, I would say, for the most part. And I'd say that's sort of the right problem to have with a sequel. It doesn't make it better, but I think it is definitely still worth your time. And if I was going to give Wonder Woman 1984 a letter grade, I would say this is a solid B+. I would say, yeah, the flaws are significant enough to keep it out of A territory, but it's still a heck of a ride. I had a great time seeing it. If you see it on HBO Max, I think you'll probably watch it fine. But if you are able to see this in a theater safely, the theaters have been doing a great job keeping things safe for you guys. Definitely go check it out in the theater. It's well worth it. It's definitely an experience movie that is well worth experiencing on a big screen. So those are my spoiler-free thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984. Now let's get into some spoiler analysis on what I thought worked and didn't work, as well as some analysis as to certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. There's some things in this movie that I thought seemed familiar. A lot of seeming plot comparisons between this film and the Spider-Man franchise. More specifically, the Spider-Man franchise pre-MCU, which is sort of surprising to me, but here, let me lay out my comparisons to be here. I feel like there's a plot point here where the object, the MacGuffin, as it were, that everyone is trying to get or be, as in the case of Max Lord, is the Dreamstone. And because Diana wished upon the Dreamstone that Steve Trevor would be back, the whole catch of the Dreamstone, or the monkey's paw, as referred to often in this movie, is that it grants your wish, but it takes your most valuable possession in the bargain. And because Diana got Steve back into her life, her powers are disappearing. Now, one of those things that is oh so plot convenience to this movie is that for everyone else, the thing that gets taken from when they wish upon the Dreamstone gets taken instantly. But thankfully for Diana, her powers get taken incrementally as the movie goes on. Otherwise, the movie would be fairly short. But I feel like there's a comparison to be made there with Spider-Man 2, where Spider-Man is losing his powers, and he's getting weaker and weaker as it goes on. But then in Spider-Man 2, as in this movie, our heroes eventually get their powers back and are able to fight the villain with their full power set as the movie goes on. Also, in this movie, I feel like there's the Barbara, aka Cheetah, as she becomes later on in the movie. She made a wish on the Dreamstone that she wanted to be like Diana. And one of the deals, the unexpected bonus, I guess, of wishing to be like Diana is that she actually gets Diana's powers of like super strength and I guess not flight, but basically her super strength, her invulnerability, basically her super speed, and with her getting these powers and learning these things, she essentially gets drunk with power and what good was in her originally gets swamped by this evil that rises up in her. I feel like there's a comparison to be made there with Spider-Man 3, when the alien symbiote that Peter Parker wore as the black suit Spider-Man gave him great power, but it also brought out evil in him, and he got rid of it. But the symbiote then landed on Eddie Brock, and he became Venom, and that transfer of power with Peter Parker knowing, it's like, no, like he's appealing to Eddie Brock's like, no, stop, you don't know how powerful you are and what you're going to become, what you're doing and becoming because of it. Very similar to a scene in when Diana and Barbara are fighting in the White House, and Diana's appealing to Barbara, saying, you don't it's like you don't understand these powers, and can't you see what's happening to you? There's a element of that there as well. Also, the character of Barbara herself as Cheetah, I feel like her character arc going from like the loser who wants to be friends with the more popular kid and gets these powers, and then eventually in theory goes beyond the popular kid and becomes evil, is a character arc mirrored in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Max, aka Electro, played by Jamie Foxx in that movie. He was the loser and the geek in that one, and he just wanted attention, and he gained powers and eventually became evil by gaining the powers. So there's that going on. Also, this is sort of a trope of this movie, that the overall theme of this movie is be careful what you wish for, and your wishes, while they seem like you want them, you know better, because what you wish for isn't always what's best. I feel like this is a a trope that has been a theme that has been explored in other movies and TV shows. A couple of examples that I came up with were Bruce Almighty, where Bruce, as God, says yes to everyone's prayers, but then that just leads to chaos, like everyone winning the lottery, or the Buffalo hockey team winning the Stanley Cup, and then there was a riot going on the whole time. So there's that sort of thing. Also, there's an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine entitled Rivals, where through weird, like, shady science, but through plot developments, essentially everyone becomes extremely lucky or extremely unlucky, and the laws of probability are such that where everyone wins the lottery, people get their wishes, but then at the end, it seems like great fortune was won, but then it was also equally lost just as fast because of it. So there's it all centering around this little gambling device, very similar to a MacGuffin, similar to the Dreamstone in a way. So there's that going. Also, the fact that Steve Trevor comes back to life in the body. His consciousness is basically in the body of some random person. This is a trope explored in the Stargate franchise, more specifically the Stargate universe, the spinoff where these communication stones are placed on the device, and you switch consciousnesses with yourself and someone else way far away, and you're basically taking over their body. And it happens that when someone dies, when that happens, there is a way theoretically for them to still be in the body of someone else, but they're in fact dead. And finally, this is sort of an obscure one, but it made me chuckle. If you're a fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000, one of my favorite episodes is when they riffed the episode, the movie Merlin's Shop of Mystical Wonders. And in that movie, Merlin's spellbook is given to a very arrogant guy who is scoffing and saying, "Oh, this isn't real." But then he does a spell, and turns out it is real. And he gets mad at the power. It's like, "Oh man, look at all the things I can do! I can figure out these spells." And while each time he's doing it, he's actually aging. His body is failing, and he gets desperate in trying to figure out exactly how to reverse his health while also keeping his powers. Very similar in my mind to the arc of Max Lord in this movie, where every time he has the Dreamstone grants a wish, it grants it, but it's hurting his body every time it happens, and he has to figure out a way to grant the wishes and also get his health back. So that's sort of a tenuous connection, but any connection to a Mystery Science Theater episode makes me laugh, so I'll just throw that in there for you. Like I said earlier, this most of the problems that I had with this movie are mainly nitpicky. There were some things that nothing really shook my suspension of disbelief in the moment. Looking back on it later, as I look on it, it's like, yeah, okay, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I'm fine with it overall. The one thing that I did allude to earlier that I actively questioned in the movie is, it's fun to have the invisible jet in a Wonder Woman movie, or at least in live action. They mentioned that in the Lego movie with Lego Wonder Woman, but yes, we get the invisible jet, it's fun, and they start in Washington, D.C., and then go to Cairo, seemingly in one trip. Also, the invisible jet isn't invulnerable, so it's probably not it's just invincible, it's not indestructible. So it's probably not a great idea to fly it through the middle of a fireworks show, which is basically, explosions. And also, fighter jets, they don't have a whole lot of fuel for that kind of flight, so I feel like they would have had to stop for fuel somewhere, which would have been an interesting conversation to have, where you pull up to the filler station, it's like, fill her up! Where do I put the fuel nozzle? I don't know. So that was the only thing that really shook me out of the movie while I was watching it. Everything else I was fine with, and then looking back on it later, I can say, okay, yeah, there's some issues here, like here or there. Like, for instance, Did Cheetah, once she actually got the Cheetah appearance, she got electrocuted, but she didn't actually die. I don't know if we actually saw her renounce her wish, but it seemed like when Max renounced his wish, everyone seemed to return to normal. So does that mean she goes back to looking human but still has Diana's powers? Does that mean also when things went back to normal, it seemed like things reversed, the missiles disappeared, but all the trash from the riots still, the riots apparently still happen. There's still trash everywhere from all the looting and rioting and stuff around Washington. So obviously everything didn't quite go back to normal, which seemed to be how it implied. Also, it makes sense in the movie, I guess, but seeing Diana when they're in the movie studio, you would think that her breaking the camera would in fact break the connection between Max and the rest of the world, but no, he just steps into like this particle beam or whatever that is. But then Diana is basically speaking directly to camera, but she's speaking in universe into whatever camera, but also like to the audience, and that to me was very shaky ground in my opinion creatively, and I don't know, that seemed a little odd in the movie. It doesn't last that long in the movie itself, but in the moment I was like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable. And there are ways you can get away with a character talking directly into camera, but that one, that was a bit much in my opinion. But also, I would be remiss not to point out how delightful it was to see Linda Carter return to her return to the Wonder Woman franchise, not as Wonder Woman, but as Asteria, the first Amazon to stay behind out of Themyscira, and whose armor Diana wears later on. Linda Carter being the original Wonder Woman actress who played her in the TV show in the late 1970s. That was just kind of fun to see her, and they do like a wink to the camera as to say, yeah, okay, she's back as Asteria, and like, yeah, we know, we're just having a fun little moment here, and that was delightful. I loved it. I liked to see, if she pops up in Wonder Woman 3, I'd love that. That makes me want to go back and watch the Wonder Woman 70s TV show just to see her in her prime. That would be awesome in my opinion. But yeah, overall, that was all I had to say about Wonder Woman 1984. What did you think of this movie? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did I miss something, a similarity in this movie? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to check out my review and reaction to the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery, also on my channel. I'll be gonna probably get a review of Pixar's Soul, which dropped on Disney Plus this weekend, in the coming days here. And also, because we're in the winding days of 2020, I'll be getting my best and worst of the year video coming out here soon. Like I said, I appreciate whatever audience I can get. If you liked this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are the best. But just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.